Midwifery meeting was really fun. It was fun to see and meet some different midwives from my area, and it was also really cool to hear their different opinions on postpartum hemorrhage and what that looks like in their clinic. So they talked about how oftentimes they do see bleeds of greater than 500 cc's in their practice, but a lot of the women who do bleed more than 500 cc's are asymptomatic of postpartum hemorrhage symptoms. So oftentimes they do the preventative things that they normally do, and the woman is fine and doesn't end up actually going into a hemorrhage state. So some of those preventative things are, first of all, nutrition. A lot of midwives in the meeting were talking about how important it is to educate their clients on the importance of nutrition for preventing postpartum hemorrhage. One of the midwives talked about an infusion that she has her clients take, and they were also talking about how the populations that they serve, some of them have a higher chance of having postpartum hemorrhage versus other populations. So like midwives who serve a lower socioeconomic status have a higher postpartum hemorrhage numbers in their practice versus ones who serve like middle class Caucasian white people. They talked about management of an actual hemorrhage using things like Chinese herbs, even just telling the woman in her body, I need you to stop bleeding, and the power of words and being in tune with your body. They talked about other different herbs and homeopathics like Calcium, capsicum. Talked about some Mexican traditional ways to help with postpartum hemorrhage. A chocolate, like a Mexican hot chocolate drink that a lot of birthing mothers from Mexico drink while they're in labor and after labor, and I thought that was really interesting. They also talked about the more medical ways to manage postpartum hemorrhage, like using Pitocin, miso, methergin, using manual compression, all those sort of things. So it was really interesting, and the total overall, most of the midwives were agreeing on things. There were a few midwives who were very much against using any medical interventions at all, only using herbal and homeopathic methods first, and using Pitocin and miso as a last resort. She was saying that she had only used it like 4 times in her whole practice, and she's been practicing for 40 years. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know if I completely agree with that approach, but it was interesting to hear that. Yeah, that was the basic thing. One thing that was interesting is I felt like some of the older midwives who were a little bit more sure of themselves and had more experience talked a lot more than some of the midwives who hadn't been practicing as long. And I thought it would have been nice to hear more from those midwives who hadn't been practicing as long. It felt like the older midwives definitely took more of a verbal role in the conversation. So it just would have been nice if they had held some space for those younger midwives so that they could talk and process their approach to postpartum hemorrhage. Yeah. I didn't do a lot of talking. I was doing mostly listening. So that was my role, was just listening and observing and gleaning knowledge from these other midwives. So it was a really great experience. I'm glad that I was able to be a part of this meeting of midwives as they discussed postpartum hemorrhage, how to prevent it, and how to actively manage it when it actually is happening. So, yeah, thanks for watching.